Multi-column layouts can really help break up long lines of text and improve readability. Let's take a look at a few more properties that can help stylize your columns. If the multi-column layout module only had the two properties column count and column width, it would already be pretty cool. Fortunately, we have tighter control than that, and we can modify a few other things. So next, we're going to take a look at a property called column gap. So we'll go ahead and go to our columns div here, and we'll type WebKit column gap, and we'll give it a value of 2ems. And what this is going to adjust is it's going to adjust the space between our columns. Now, normally in another CSS framework like Blueprint, this is called the gutter, but here it's called gap. So we'll go ahead and refresh the page. And there you can see we have a slightly larger gap between our columns. So we'll go ahead and switch back and maybe try a different value here, like 5ems. And when we refresh the page, you can see that we now have much larger gaps between our columns. You'll also notice that even though we have specified a column count, the content has reflowed into 3 columns because the column gap is so wide. But for now, we'll just go ahead and set it back to 2ems. The next property we're going to take a look at is called column rule. And column rule works just like borders. So we'll go ahead and switch back to our text editor, and we'll type WebKit column rule, and we'll give it a value of 1 pixel wide, a style of solid, and we'll give it a black hexadecimal value. And when we switch back to the browser and refresh, you can see that we now have these thin lines between each one of our columns. The column rule property is a really good opportunity to style your columns. Just like borders, you can apply different line styles like dashed or dotted. So let's go ahead and try that out. We can make dashed columns, just like that. Or we can make them dotted and have these thin dots in between each one of our columns. And we can also, of course, adjust the color. So we'll go ahead and maybe change it to like really bright color. And we can also adjust the width, and we'll change it to say 15 pixels so that we can really see it here. And there, just like that, you can adjust the width and colors just like borders. The last property we're going to take a look at is called WebKit column span. So to do that, we're going to select our H2 that we have in our markup, and we'll type out the property WebKit column span, and we'll give it the value all. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to break our H2 across all of our columns. So let's go ahead and refresh. And because our H2 is below a short paragraph and above a longer paragraph, you can see that it looks like it's kind of higher up in the columns here. So a couple of final points I'd like to go over. Browser support on this is still a little bit shaky. Some browsers support some properties and not others. However, Mozilla Firefox, Opera, and Google Chrome and Safari all seem to be pretty good. The other nice thing about this is that fallback is graceful. So in a browser that doesn't support any of this, like Internet Explorer, you won't have any of the columns and you'll just have the paragraphs like normal. The other weird thing about multi-column layouts is that the columns are not actually real elements like when you're using a grid system like the one in Blueprint. The entire paragraphs here are actually elements just by themselves, but the columns are not. And of course, like I mentioned before, multi-column layouts are really good for accessibility. That about wraps things up for multi-column layouts. Remember, browser compatibility is improving very rapidly, so now's a great time to start trying out columns in your web pages.